All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Some of you have met me before. I'm Eleonora, and I'm the director of the Castellani Art Museum. Most of you are NU students, so welcome, obviously, back to the CAM. And then we have a few additional faculty and outside people, so thank you for joining us today for the beginning of this lecture series, AI as a Medium. Niagara University and the Castellani Art Museum acknowledge that we are privileged to gather on the lands of the Seneca and Tuscarora nations and other indigenous communities who have stewarded and continue to steward this land throughout generations. We honor their sovereignty, we demonstrate respect, and we correct the stories and practices that have erased indigenous people's history and culture and the past and present by inviting and honoring truth. CAM lives this acknowledgement through our commitment to showcasing Indigenous perspectives in its galleries and programs, which you are welcome to check out. Today's lecture is part of a series exploring AI in the art world, with two parts of this series, the second happening on Wednesday, right here in this room. It is part of a partnership with Niagara University's International Marketing, MKT, 325 that will culminate with a pop-up exhibition of student-created artworks right here in the Castellani Gallery starting on April 29th, which most of you know, but really we're very excited about showcasing student work in this space, so wanted to make sure everybody knew about it. Today, we are honored to have esteemed speakers Eleonora Brizi and Anne Spalter with us, and to introduce them further, it is Jessica Minikuchi, CAM's Marketing and Membership Specialist. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Ellen. And thank you everyone for being here today. We're really excited to have you back at CAM. And for those who are in the audience who are from our public audience, thank you for coming today. It's very exciting to have you. So this session is an educational expedition into the innovative world of artificial intelligence and art. Our learning outcomes are designed to deepen your understanding of the evolving field. You'll learn how artists are utilizing AI in artistic creation, explore the tools and technologies in AI art, and gain basic skills in conceptualizing and prompting AI for artwork creation. Moreover, we'll delve into the conceptual approaches artists adopt when working with AI and identify emerging talents in the AI art scene. Eleonora Brizi, a renowned digital art curator, brings a wealth of knowledge in blockchain art and generative AI. Her diverse experiences from living in New York, Rome, Beijing, and now primarily in the Metaverse, provide a unique global perspective on digital art trends and practices. Anne Spalter, a trailblazer in digital art, is known for her innovative merging of various media to capture the complexities of our contemporary world. Her work, often themed around transformation and societal adaptation, brilliantly captures the essence of the sublime in both natural and urban landscapes. This lecture series is also an interactive opportunity, like Ellen mentioned, for Niagara University's international marketing students, who will later apply these insights to create their own AI-generated art inspired by the museum's collection. So join us in this session that promises to intertwine art, technology, and education in a unique and enlightening way. We invite everyone to engage in this enriching experience. Note that at the end, we'll have a 10-minute Q&A, so please write down your questions for our speakers throughout the talk, so you can then ask them at the end, okay? Additionally, we would love to extend a huge thank you to Dr. Daly, the participating students, the CAM staff, and the College of Business for making this important conversation possible. And then please note we're recording this session. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to pass off the stage to Eleonora, who's going to start with her first presentation. Each speaker is going to speak for about 25 minutes.
Hi, hello everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very happy to be here, especially to be here with Anne Spalter. It's an honor. I will just share my presentation. Yeah, my name is Eleonora Brizi. I'm a digital art curator, and already seeing this title, I got shivers. AI as a medium. Where do we start? It might seem simple to to put together a presentation about artists creating through this fantastic, amazing tool, since I have been working with artists using AI and blockchain and technology for years now. But then this technology is so much developing and changing literally every day. There is always very complex, but very exciting as well. I thought that I will start with a question to just clarify something, because this is a question that not only I get a lot, but I have to admit that I also stop sometimes to ask myself. And there is an answer to this, but the answer is constantly changing. So what is the difference between generative art and AI-generated art? We're going to talk about AI-generated art today. This is what the lecture is going to be. But so generative art made with algorithms has been existing since the 60s. And what we're going to talk about today is actually, like later developments of what's been happening because of these new models that pop up in the past years. So unlike the old-fashioned generative art, AI-generated art is not produced with a set of programming instructions that artists give, but instead it evolves training an algorithm on a data set so that it can later produce artworks. And it's also important to understand the difference, which I'm sure you know, but again, just to have it as a basis between AI and generative AI. AI is used to predict, and generative AI is used to create completely new content. So generative art produces outcomes, often random, but not always, based on code, which is usually developed or customized by the artist. It's like a random chance generator where the artist establish options and set the rules. And then the algorithm randomly generates an outcome based on the limits and the parameters that the artist set up. AI generators, on the opposite, use proprietary code, which is usually developed by in-house engineers, to produce outcomes based on the statistical dominance of patterns found within a data set. So the artist is usually not involved in creating the underlying code used to generate the image, but instead they practice to train the AI with inputs that resemble their artistic vision. So it's like a curation. So they interact through inputs and also experiment with prompting the image generators, refining the text based on what they want to obtain and achieve. This is just a scheme to position our generative AI in this system. So generative AI is part of deep learning, which is part of machine learning, which is part of AI. I would like to start with Kevin Abosch because not only he's a great and fantastic artist, but I recently curated a show for him in Paris at NFT Factory, and the experience was very fun, and I think that it will be good for you to hear about this. So we decided to present this show, which was called 1337, and it was all about hacking culture. So I, as a curator, wouldn't know how Kevin would create images. This was more about having an NFT show. So we didn't agree that it will use AI to create any of this. So the show happened in October in Paris, and Kevin, he created 2 series of brand new artworks. The first series, and I think it's interesting to talk about these 2 series also because it's very important to understand the difference in which these new models, generative models, text-to-image generators have been used by different artists. There is a public use, and then there is, which is the public model, and then there is artists who run the model locally. And so they train the model with their own data set. So with the public model, the data that are used are the data that are picked from the internet and from everywhere. But then if you run it locally, it is data that you input. So it can be your photographs, your documents, everything that you decide to input into the model. And in this show, in these two different series, Kevin used Stable Diffusion. And for the first series, 12 lessons, he used a custom model running Stable Diffusion locally that he trained with his own photographic data. So he used around 100,000 photos that were about electronics and urban development that he took himself. And for the second series, he used the Stable Diffusion public model. So you will also see the difference in the aesthetic and the outcome. These were the 12 artworks that were created through the custom and locally run Stable Diffusion model. As you can see, from the images, there is the feeling of electronics and also of urban. And also you can go to check out the titles of the works because they were as well interesting as well. This is how we displayed all of them at NFT Factory in Paris. NFT Factory is a very green space. It's somehow they decided to use this color probably for branding purposes. And so it was also interesting for me as a curator to understand what could fit in there. Like you have this huge like green space, what do you curate there? And so I thought about doing something with Kevin that could hack the space. And this is how we came up with the hacking show. And then this is the Hacker Mag series where he used Stable Diffusion public model. So here I have some stories to say about this. Again, I didn't know that Kevin would have created artworks using AI, although he has been using AI since forever, but also other technologies. And Kevin started to send me these images on my phone, on iMessage. So I also have the excuse that I didn't see them in a big screen. But then he will send me these messages and told me, oh, you know, I thought about having displaying these magazines, like these hacker magazines from the 70s, you know, because I really like this nostalgia feeling. So what do you think about this? And he will send me these images and I'm like, wow, this is great. It's fantastic, to the point that I asked, where did you find this? And then obviously he laughed a lot. And I guess what I want to say with this is that I was the curator of the show and I got hacked every day by these artists who wanted to prove, because Kevin is a provocateur, he's a hacker in spirit. He's like you know, he provokes to see the reaction of the audience, even of his own curator, and to prove that if we don't pay, there is a possibilities for us to understand what are real images or what are images created with AI. And there will always be a possibility and a chance to do that. But the spare of attention that we have currently for images and for this kind of content is so little that even myself, I didn't even think that he used AI for this. Also, because obviously when you see it, you might think, oh, this is kind of like a language that maybe hackers used to like use on the magazine. Anyways, the context was perfect for me to be tricked. And also I was just looking very quickly on the phone and I didn't have the patience to, you know, like stay for 10 seconds and you will clearly see that this will be impossible. You see, for instance, like on the right, you see that there is a very strange arm. You will see that a woman, a Black woman, it wouldn't be possible for a Black woman in the 60s and 70s to be a hacker. It would be very rare and very strange. And also for a woman and like an ATM, etc. And here we have like a Japanese. So I think I thought this would be a good example to show you how artists can play with AI, with public models and locally run models, and also to bring back the responsibility on ourselves, especially right now that this technology is so present in our lives. We should pay more attention, and pretty much the truth is always there in the images. And this is just some other images from the show in Paris. Then another artist who I love deeply is Sofia Crespo. Many of the artists that I know and I love, and this is not a critique, it's very interesting because things are getting more mixed. They have been getting more mixed lately, which is great. But you have to understand that before these public models that are accessible to everyone and these text-to-image generators, forgive me for my cough, I'm just recovering from a very bad flu. There are artists who have been working with AI since forever. And before having access to these public models, artists will train, I mean, they're still doing it now, but they will train their own models with their own data. And sometimes the result and the output of working with a little set of data, although it might sound strange, is even better than having access to this billions of data that you will have access to when you use Midjourney or DALL-E or Stable Diffusion, any public models. Sofia Crespo she has been using AI to discover and the biological world, the nature, to even sometimes create new forms of life that wouldn't exist. I'm just showing you here some creators, and to also experiment with what's possible and what's not possible. Sometimes she creates certain animals, creatures that our eye thinks can recognize, but our brain instantly has a glitch for, because it's an image that we think we know, but there's something strange because it is created with AI and it's a new creator. But today, the reason why I'm presenting Sofia is for a very specific project, which is called Critically Extant, which I thought it's very interesting because I wanted to talk a little bit about bias. So we all know about bias and data. Again, if we use public models that are trained on data that we find on, these data are provided by internet and therefore big tech companies, obviously the bias are enormous. So everyone is talking about it. If you type, I don't know, like a woman in career, usually what will come up will be a white woman working in an office. So how do we face that? It's a big topic, but what I am presenting here today, I think it's very interesting because Sofia did it on species that could risk extinction. So for instance, she was saying that, like we love cats. All of us somehow, we love cats, we love dogs. And so there is a lot of data about dogs and a lot of data about cute cats. But there's so many species in the planet of animals or plants. They're not, somehow we don't like them because aesthetically we don't like them, or we don't know about them, or simply we don't talk about them that much. And it's incredible how the amount of data that is present because of our own taste is so little when compared to other animals or plants that we really love. And so this project explores the limits of available data as a means of engaging with critically endangered species. What happens if an endangered species is liked by humans so that we have a lot of data. And if an endangered species is not that much liked by humans, and so we have little data. I think it's a very interesting project that talks about bias through a very interesting perspective. So I suggest you to check it. This is just a few screenshots of videos that she created of all these species that she went to search for and analyze. It's a very great project. Another artist that I want to talk about is Sasha Stiles, who I also think is pretty special because she's a poet. And I don't know how familiar you are with poetry. We all believe that usually poetry is something that we study at school or in academic spaces, and then it doesn't really touch our lives that much anymore. And I am from the Web3 space. I studied blockchain, and I have been working with blockchain art for years. And something incredible happened in the past 2 years. This platform was created, which is called the Verse. And the platform is poetry on the blockchain. And you can't imagine what this platform has created, that at least the Web3 people who weren't reading, I mean, Web3 people is a very little bubble, but at least these people that I know, including myself, are now reading poetry, which is a miracle. And Sasha Stein is one of the co-founders of this platform. She has been using technology in her poetry and her writing, especially AI. She created technology, which I actually have here. It's this book. And this is a great book. And so sections of technology were written in collaboration by Sasha Stiles and her alter ego. So Sasha created an alter ego, which is this always evolving AI poet. It's a custom text generator, which is powered by deep learning language models, and including GPT-2 and GPT-3, which I believe you all know. And then she fine-tuned it on her own poetry and extensive research materials. So what she created is that these poems are actually a collaboration between her and her alter ego. I think I picked...
Memento Memoriae. The great secret of life. How to forget. Dr. George Miller. 1. Mundus senescent. The world grows old. It looks so new. Our brightest lights and tallest buildings sprung overnight. Rough-hewn, smooth sheen, burned patina, well-worn, or shaped out of sheen. Consider diamonds fresh flash, carbon ash to pristine shimmer over 1 billion years. Raw cobalt rock under sleek tech glass, from Congolese Cote d'Ivoire to computer. At last, we've learned how to make it glow, rebury what we know. 2. Mutatis mutandis. Remember, memory. The more life happens, the less I hold on to the important things. If my history were a book, I'd take it off the shelf and thumb the dog-eared pages to brush up on myself. If my brain were a feed, I'd scroll to the bottom and relive, which might be a relief when absent moments gnaw like shapeless hunger. Although coming to life again is a hallucination, second time worse because nothing changes. Maybe what's lost is meant to be. The wiser I get, the greener my intellect, the tenderer my understanding. What might have been isn't. I'm not nostalgic for you then or now, but for that unknown, unachieved you. Memoriae sacrum. I release you. 3. Mundus felt Fichipi. Every memory leaves a trace on the cerebrum, some physical place that's more wire recorder or strip of film than infinite conundrum. Each passing moment inscribed there, somewhere among 86 billion neurons to probe and tinker. Our greatest thinkers have always wondered what we carry around in our hands, where brain and body meet, neocortex layered over caveman consciousness. Today, they're retooling our powers of recollection, editing the playback reel to implant a new reel. Biology's no fool. Buried deep in a sweet spot beyond their reach is the almondine trigger that gives me the sweats for no good reason. How odd, this modern pain, re-experience of an ancestor startled by predators on the plain. Many lions and eons later, men play memory games. Ergo, did you imagine? Years to manipulation, years to Adderall, Xanax, beta blockers, palliation, here's to cognitive enhancement, mental prostheses, technology over education. Though some want a moratorium on such experimentation. A mind with perfect recall isn't human after all.
Okay. Sasha Styles. All right, we lost Eleonora. Anne, can you hear me? Did everybody freeze?
Yes,
All right, we might
I hear you.
hop over to you now, just because I think we're getting close to the time frame.
Yep. Let me do that screen sharing portion again. Okay, let me know if it looks all right.
Yes, it looks perfect.
Okay, incredible. Hi everyone, I'm Anne Spalter. I'm a digital artist for decades now, and I've been using AI in my work since 2020, which is a long time in the AI art world. And Eleanor's talk was fantastic. I think there's actually a lot of overlap. So we didn't see each other's slides before, but I think they're going to work well together. And thanks so much for having me, to the director of the museum, to Jess, and to all of you who came in to watch all of this while it's so beautiful outside. AI has gotten a lot of press, but it's hard to really know what it's like to use it until you do yourself or see some examples. So that's what I'm going to try to show, why I'm using it, what my process is on different platforms, and I'll recommend some platforms too that you might enjoy experimenting with. I have been doing this seemingly forever, creating digital art since actually the late 1980s. And in the 1990s, I taught the first digital fine art courses at Brown and RISD. There weren't that many resources at the time. And I ended up writing a textbook, The Computer and the Visual Arts. And as part of that, in addition to looking at the theory and practice and technical aspects of digital art, I also interviewed some of the pioneers of digital art and found their stories just completely amazing. So Eleonora talked about generative art, and that's what I was looking at. And that's what Michael Spalter and I began collecting because he said, wow, these people they're like the Impressionists. The Academy hates them. They can't get their work shown, but it's really amazing. And they're actually very sophisticated artists. So even though there was a lot of pushback and outright hostility, we became very involved with collecting these works. And in order to sort of continue our evangelizing of the field, we have the whole collection online at spalterdigital.com. So you can check that out. And it's a good resource for learning about the history of digital art, which is important in this context of AI art, because as Leonora mentioned, people often use the term generative artwork kind of loosely, and you're not sure maybe exactly what they're talking about. So early generative artwork, artists programmed it themselves, introduced random aspects, and created work that was often very simple and geometric looking. It's hard to understand now the challenges that they faced, that some of these early artists programmed using punch cards, having to sneak into institutions in the middle of the night to use a computer. And as you'll see in this quote here from Manfred Moore, who began experimenting with the cube in ways very similar to Solowit before him. He gave a talk in 1972 and someone in the audience threw an egg at him. So the level of hostility and sort of offense that people took to having the computer used in the art making process was extreme. And it's hard to imagine that now that we carry, like a giant computer around with us in our pockets, but we are some of that again with AI. So not all of that early artwork was geometric and, full of squares and rectangles. There are also very sensual things like Jean-Pierre Hebert, whose work you can check out on our website. And I highly recommend this book, When the Machine Made Art, The Troubled History of Computer Art, to understand better the resistance that these artists faced. And I think it's relevant now because AI artists are facing similar resistance, where people say it's not really art, the computer's doing it for you. And there's this concern that the computer is somehow usurping human creativity, and artists and illustrators and photographers are going to be out of work. And there's, again, a lot of fear and hostility. So I think I had a quote on one of those earlier slides too. It's also similar to the advent of photography. When people said, where's the art? Anyone can point and click. It took a while before you realize that some people point and click and get like an amazing image. And then like I point and click and I get a snapshot, and there is a real difference. So people thought when photography was invented, it would replace painting. Like, why bother to paint a portrait if you can take a photograph? But painting is still around and doing very well. So I bring all these things up to try to put AI art in context, and so that you can take some of the very emotional responses that you might read about in the press with a grain of salt. The reason you haven't seen this artwork until recently is that the research behind it is very recent. GANS, which I'm going to discuss in a minute, the research paper only came out in 2014, and all this stuff about prompting and making images from text, that research wasn't published till 2016. If it seems very new and you're wondering where it was before, it literally didn't exist before. Again, in trying to connect it with art history, there's a terrific show up right now at the Whitney of Harold Cohen's work. He did AI work, and it's not the same kind of neural networks and mathematics that's behind today's AI artwork, but more of an expert system where he put in a bunch of rules about how he made his art. And you can actually watch it being created live at this link at the Whitney during the show. But I think he's conceptually the sort of grandfather of AI art, and people are now looking back at his art much more seriously. So I'm going to include this slide again at the end. There's a lot of really great tools out there with varying levels of cost. A lot have a free entry point. There are many more than this. So these are ones that I've used and enjoy and recommend. And I'm going to show some examples, and then I'll put this up at the end if anyone wants to follow some of those. So I became involved with AI art in 2020 during the pandemic. I was spending all day on my computer and reading Twitter, the platform formerly known as Twitter. And an artist friend of mine posted these real cool images and said she was a beta tester for a thing called Playform. And I was like, whoa, what is that? How'd you make those? I got on there and learned about GANs, generative adversarial networks. And the idea is really like a tug of war between two sets of images, a starter set and an end set. And it's trying to change the starter set and make it look like the end set. And this is important to understand because this sort of learning process is behind all the other types of AI as well. So here I used circular images from my own Instagram feed. And as the end set, I just took a lot of pictures of airplanes from the web. I'm very obsessed with the sky and planes and travel in my artwork. And this, you can see the learning iterative process. So it begins to modify the initial images. It's trying to make them valid members of the end set. So it changes them and then it looks and it assesses whether they're good. And if not, you keep going. So it's going and you can see it more and more like airplanes. And if it were really working at the end, you'd get just a bunch of new pictures of planes that look like photos of planes. The system never did that. And instead, even after 250 iterations, it just made these very bizarre compositions that I loved. And I thought I definitely want to use these in my work. I would never have come up with them by myself. And many artists using AI have talked about a kind of creepy feeling of like collaboration, having a studio assistant, really working with another entity in making the work. And I definitely felt that. The images at that time were very low res that came out of these systems. So 256 pixels square. So they weren't really useful for printing or making videos. I went back to my traditional art training and made pastel drawings from them and paintings and showed them in works, in shows and art fairs, and got really great response, which was interesting and contrasts a lot with the early generative artwork. So certainly in some contexts, AI has been more welcome into the traditional art world than some of the other computer art formats and form factors. You can also use Playform to make video. It's kind of system, GAN-based system to make video. And this was shown in LA, Antebellum, LA. And it's nice. So it uses all of the processing, the latent space that is created with all these images to have beautiful transitions between different selections that you choose. And I thought, again, this was like a time-based composition that I would never have come up with on my own. And it was just super fun to play with. Another type of AI that you see artists using for still and video is style transfer, where the system just takes the style, the colors, but not the compositional information and applies it to something. So here I have a photo I took on vacation. And for style references, I used a pastel drawing I made and a digital composition I made, and then made this cool image. And again, if I had been thinking, how do I get these colors of this drawing into this photograph, I might have done something similar, but not really. I think the way that AI combines stuff together is incredibly unique and gives you just a different kind of space and composition than you get with traditional tools. So on the theme of being accepted into the art world, I was in auction at Sotheby's, and this piece actually has now been acquired by the Pompidou. Many major museums are now accepting donations or outright buying pieces. Yes, this video. And this was made with a system that we're using in early 2021, VQ GAN plus clip. And this was done with a custom set of Google Colab notebooks, and which we were able to enter different prompts for different times in the video. So instead of one prompt controlling everything, you could get a sense of narrative. And I think there's so many ways like this to explore AI that haven't really been explored yet because it's such a new medium. You can see that online. It was harder for artists to get access to AI in 2020, early 2021, but then a bunch of platforms emerged using open source systems, like VQGAN plus Clip, like Stable Diffusion, but putting a really nice user interface on it so you don't have to know any programming to use them. And one of those is Night Cafe, which has continued to do really interesting, innovative things. And I used it to create an NFT drop, spaceships. And when I was putting together these slides, I realized at that time I felt it was very important to say that I'd used AI in the work, and I literally titled it AI Spaceships. And now when I use AI, I often don't make any reference to it or let people know I used it. Just like if I used a camera or any other sort of type of technology in my work, unless it's really the subject matter of the work. Just in such a short period of time, I think it's become a tool that many artists now use very comfortably. It was interesting, and in terms of prompting, and I know Jess said we'd speak some about prompting. My prompts are usually quite simple. So you can see here the prompt for one of the original pieces in the spaceship drop. Speed spaceship in a dream with flashing lights, polished surrealism, cerulean glow. I don't know, surrealism been there twice. At that time, we often referenced a website called ArtStation. You don't have to do that anymore. I wouldn't use that anymore in my prompts. And bokeh to get a nice out of focus lights. So I recommend if you are using AI and you start getting great results that you like, make all the images that you want, because you could come back the next day and it would be different. They're constantly tweaking the algorithm on all these platforms. I ran the same prompt with and without ArtStation in Night Cafe when I was making these slides, and you can see the image is completely different. So if I wanted to get back that picture, unless I contacted them to get their model, if they saved it at that time, I would not be able to recreate it. So it's like the weather. It's sort of a moment in time with creation. So as I mentioned, my prompts are pretty short. I also use Midjourney, which runs in a Discord. And one of the nice things about that is it has all these channels. You can see some of them, general 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It goes up to like 25 now. You can see everyone else's work and you can see their prompts. So one of the good ways to learn about prompting is to find images that you like and admire and see how they made them. And with Midjourney, you can actually do that. Most artists don't publish their prompts with their image, but the Discord format gives you a chance to see how other people are getting the results that they are. And some people put in specific camera lenses or lighting directions or compositional directions. I have to say, even with a giant paragraph of text, it's hard to completely control the image. You kind of have to go back and forth with the AI and work with it to get what you want. Another nice thing, and this is a different platform called Civet AI, which I definitely recommend checking out. It's wild. It has a whole not safe for work aspect to it too, so you can imagine what's being generated on that. Platforms like Midjourney are very protected. There's many words you can't even use in a prompt. Civet AI is a free-for-all. So if you want to make something really wacky, check that out. And it allows you to do negative prompting and put it in a separate field, and that can be very useful. And then you can copy and paste your negative prompts if they're working from one image to another. So it actually freezes its model, so you don't have this changing problem. They're called checkpoints because it's a frozen checkpoint of a model. So if you put the exact same prompt into a checkpoint and then you put it in a month later, it's going to make exactly the same image. And they also have these cool things called LoRa's, a general, I think, not specific to Civet AI, which does further training. So it's almost like you got a friend come and like Kevin did, put in their own images. And they're very specific to help you create things that look like they're animated or they're super realistic or they're literally all making Taylor Swift or something very specific. This is just example of another long prompt with a big negative prompt in there as well. The best way to learn about prompting is just to get online and start doing it. And I really like what Eleonora said about the curation thing, because I think that that describes prompting a lot. It's very rare. If you read a news article about AI, it sounds like you type in something quickly and then boom, you get exactly what you want. It looks amazing. You fire your graphic designer, but it's not how it actually works in real life. You put in the prompt, you get something, there's maybe something interesting, there's a lot wrong with it. You tweak the prompt, you run it again, and you do that over and over again until it converges into your artwork or design or something that you want. So it's a very iterative and interactive process. And there's a lot of advice online, YouTube and website and guides, but I think nothing replaced trying it out yourself. So speaking of process, my next big NFT drop was Rabbit Takeover. Yeah. And it was 557 post-Armageddon rabbits. These were all made with DALL-E, which you can no longer access directly, easily anyway. It's part of ChatGPT. And that's a very different prompting process because it's conversational. And that's nice because you can say, I like the image you made, ChatGPT, but make it a little darker or change the tone or add another figure and go back and forth, only tweaking one, not rewriting the whole prompt every time. So it has a different feeling to it. So these I made all in DALL-E, and they came out again pretty low res and with a lot of issues that I fixed in DALL-E by doing something called in-painting, where you erase an area and write another prompt and it fills in just that area. You can now do this in Photoshop with generative fill, which is an amazing tool that definitely check it out. Lifesaver for me. So for these, I did a bunch of in-painting and then I brought them into Photoshop and ran a plugin called a Stable Diffusion plugin. Photoshop now, Adobe has its own system called Firefly that you can use within their programs and as a separate website. But I used it just to fine-tune details of the images. And then I upscaled them with something called Topaz Gigapixel, which does a fantastic job of upscaling and tweaked compositions a little bit in Photoshop. So what that would look like from beginning to end is like this. Just adding more detail, making it more polished. I didn't feel like what came right out of DALL-E would have been a final artwork for me. So you can see it added a lot of important things. And if I were doing this today, I would skip a bunch of those tools and go directly to Magnific.ai. I did not use this tool for a long time because there's trial version. It's $4 a month at its lowest level. And finally, someone recommended it, and I thought I would try it. And it's amazing. It's really incredible. It not only upscales your image very well, but uses your AI prompt to creatively add details to the image. So it's like you're making a new image and upscaling it at the same time. And it saves many steps in the creative process. Eleonora mentioned that artists can run AI models at home. So in the beginning, everything is in the cloud. Now you can have your own AI machine at home. You can run a bunch of things on a Mac. This is a Linux machine with an NVIDIA card. And you can see up at the top, the market cap of NVIDIA has gone through the roof because everyone's using AI everywhere. But this is what the interface looks like. So you have sometimes more settings and more control over what you're doing. And you can add in, I had my own reference image and then could make, as well as still images, short videos, which I think sort of a new frontier in AI art is getting better and better. and began making these things I'm calling energy kaleidoscopes, which are short videos. And I think you'd never like know in the process that there was some realistic image as a reference image. And it just took a lot of experimentation, but it was nice because if you run it at home on your own machine, it's free. You're not paying per image, you're not paying a monthly fee. There's the cost of the machine, but then you can really experiment to your heart's content. You can also do video on Runway ML. I put in still images and sometimes prompt. Sometimes I just let it try to decide on its own what to make and how to animate it. You can see these are all short. It tends to break down after 4 to 8 seconds. You get weird warping and everything kind of falls apart. So I think that's definitely something that technologists are working on. You may have seen, if you're on social media a lot, something called Sora that OpenAI is releasing and looks like it makes really amazing realistic videos. I have not had the opportunity to try it. I have experimented though with the third dimension, and AI is at work there as well. So these initial images were made with Stable Diffusion locally. I knew I wanted to make a 3D printed castle, and unfortunately, these were not printable. So it took a while to make an image simple enough print. Just a web 3D takes as little as one image, although you can put multiple points of view if you have them, and miraculously makes a 3D model. So I'm not sure how it's even using AI to do that. Like it's like it can see behind your photograph. It's really quite extraordinary. We made a 3D printed fountain with multicolored filament, and that was just shown in Paris at the Deep AI Art Fair. But this whole process would never have been possible for me without AI. I'm not a 3D artist. I find 3D software super confusing and hard to use. So this really enabled me to literally explore a new dimension. So people thought cameras were going to destroy painting, put artists out of business. I would say the opposite has been true, that more people are involved. Plus, there's an entire field of photography. There's cameras everywhere in our lives at all different levels. It's not just obviously in the art, even just straight up photo documentation. The link there is an article about how a criminal was captured because there were literally so many cameras around in the environment that they found them. There's concern, as always, that this new technology will somehow replace artists and creativity. But I think that artistic practice it's more than the end result of what you make. So even if the computer creates an image that looks aesthetically beautiful, it doesn't replace the experience of making the image for the artist, which is why we do it. So I think it's actually been beneficial. It really made me think about what it means to be an artist or why one even makes images. And I don't think it really interferes in that area at all. There's no question, though, that it's incredibly powerful technology. When I first saw text to image, I mean, I was blown away. I think it will enable more people to make images. So you used to have to, go to art school, learn how to draw. Now you can make really amazing, realistic things, send them to your friends, use them to communicate, use them in business. I think it will help just expand visual communication in general and increase the size of the visual economy as a whole. So I think it will be good in the end for all of us, even though I can understand when people see it, that it can be off-putting. So thank you. That's the whole presentation. I'll leave this up in case anyone wants to check out the platforms. But otherwise, we're open for questions. Or Jess, do you want me to just send you this?
Oh, yes, send it. I
Stop
know.
sharing so we can do.
Oh, amazing. Yes, please send so we can upload it. And then we also have the recorded video. I think I would really love to, Eleonora, did you want to just retrace a few things before we switch over to the Q&A? Because I know you got cut off. I feel so bad. We did a little
Technology.
Sasha.
No, sorry, somehow, this is this is technology. Somehow internet disappeared and reappeared after 10 seconds. We're still there, even if you're talking about AI. Yeah, I'm just gonna show you the last thing that I wanted to, because I think that it's fun. Just to conclude. Yeah, I was talking about Mario Klingemann, who is an amazing artist who has been using AI in an excellent way for a long time. But lately, he created this artwork, AICCA, artificially intelligent critical cunning, which is a dog. And this was my conclusion, because after the boom of new AI tools and generators, artists like Mario, sometimes they just cannot take it anymore, because obviously the noise increased. And so he created this dog that has been trained on a data visual art and art writing. So he's a art critic. And he has this black lens eye, and so he looks at artworks, physical artworks, and he works with a GPT model to generate a piece of criticism. And the text comes out printed from as a poo of the dog. And so this is how I wanted to conclude, since we have seen bias and creativity and solutions and local run and public models. And this is Mario Klingemann reaction, creating a dog. But also, I mean, before Anne, I wanted to say that I had the pleasure of working with Anne on this book that I curated for Rizzoli. And so it was my way to introduce her, but now she already talked. I would just like to thank her for everything she has been doing. And thank you, everyone.
With that, I'm going to say thank you very, very much. This was a very wonderful chat, and everything you guys offered is on point with what everybody's learning here today, and very fascinating. And it goes beyond what they're learning as well, which I think gives them a lot of food for thought, which will help them kind of think outside of the box, which is the whole goal of this project, is to be less generic, to not just get, a very basic, beautiful word salad or basic image from a chatbot, essentially. So this gives them a lot of food for thought without having to not know where to start, essentially, so that they can start somewhere. And they spent their last class last week picking out artworks from the museum. So it'll be really interesting to see. And as soon as we start to get their artwork, I'm going to make sure you guys can see it too, so you can see what everybody made. But thank you so much.
Great.
It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
I'm a huge fan of Anne.
Thank you.
So it's been a huge honor for you guys to be here.